Chapter 29. It was August. For days, the sky had become cloudless. The sun scorched unbearably, and from early morning, the warm wind raised a whirl of hot sand from the sand drifts and from the road, and bore it in the air through the reeds, the trees, and the village. The grass and the leaves on the trees were covered with dust, and the roads dried up salt marshes were baked so hard that they rang when trodden on. The water had long since subsided in the Terek, and rapidly vanished and dried up in the ditches. The slimy banks of the pond near the village were trodden bare by the cattle, and all day long you could hear the splashing of water and the shouting of girls and boys bathing. The sand drifts and the reeds were already drying up in the steppes, and the cattle, lowing, ran into the fields in the daytime. The boars migrated into the distant reed beds and to the hills beyond the Terek. Mosquitoes and gnats swarmed in thick clouds over the low lands and the villages. The snow peaks were hidden in gray mist, and the air was rarefied and smoky. It was said that the Abreks had crossed the now shallow river and were prowling on this side of it. Every night the sun set in a glowing red blaze. It was the busiest time of the year. The villagers all swarmed in the melon fields and the vineyards. The vineyards, thickly overgrown with twining verdure, lay in cool, deep shade. Everywhere, between the broad, translucent leaves, ripe, heavy, black clusters peeped out. Along the dusty road from the vineyards, the creaking carts moved slowly, heaped up with black grapes. Clusters of them, crushed by the wheels, lay in the dirt. Boys and girls in smocks stained with grape juice, with their grapes in their hands and mouths, ran after their mothers. On the road, you continually came across tattered laborers with baskets of grapes on their powerful shoulders. Cossack maidens, veiled with kerchiefs to their eyes, drove bullocks harnessed to carts laden high with grapes. Soldiers, who happened to meet these carts, asked for grapes, and the maidens, clambering up without stopping their carts, would take an armful of grapes and drop them into the skirts of the soldiers' coats. In some homesteads, they had already begun pressing the grapes, and the smell of the emptied skins filled the air. One saw the blood-red troughs in the penthouses in the yards, and no-gay laborers with their trousers rolled up and their legs stained with juice. Grunting pigs gorged themselves with the empty skins and rolled about in them. The flat roofs of the outhouses were all spread over with the dark amber clusters drying in the sun. Daws and magpies crowded round the roofs, picking the seeds and fluttering from one place to another. The fruits of the year's labors were being merrily gathered in, and this year the fruits were unusually fine and plentiful. In the shady green vineyards, amid the sea of vines, laughter, songs, merriment, and the voices of women were heard on all sides, and glimpses of their bright-colored garments could be seen. Just at noon, my uncle was sitting in their vineyard in the shade of a peach tree, getting out the family dinner from under an unharnessed cart. Opposite her, on a spread-out horse-cloth, sat the cornet, washing his hands by pouring water on them from a little jug. Her little brother, who had just come straight out the pond, stood wiping his face with his wide sleeves and gazed anxiously at his sister and his mother, and breathed deeply, awaiting his dinner. The old mother, with her sleeves rolled up over her strong, sunburnt arms, was arranging grapes, dried fish, and clotted cream on a little, low, circular tartar table. The cornet wiped his hands, took off his cap, crossed himself, and moved near to the table. The boy seized the jug and eagerly began to drink. The mother and daughter crossed their legs under them and sat down by the table. Even in the shade, it was intolerably hot. The air above the vineyard smelt unpleasant. The strong, warm wind passing amid the branches brought no coolness, but only monotonously bent the top of the pear, peach, and mulberry trees with which the vineyard was sprinkled. The cornet, having crossed himself once more, took the little jug of shakir that stood behind him, covered with a vine leaf, and having a drink from the mouth of the jug, passed it to the old woman. He had nothing on over his shirt, which was unfastened at the neck and showed his shaggy, muscular chest. His fine-featured, cunning face looked cheerful. Neither in his attitude nor his words was his unusual willingness to be seen. He was cheerful and natural. "Shall we finish the bit beyond the shed tonight?" he asked, wiping his wet beard. "We'll manage it," replied his wife, "if only the weather does not hinder us. The Demkins have not half finished yet," she added. "Only Utstenska is at work there, wearing herself out." "What can you expect of them?" said the old man proudly. "Here, have a drink, my Anka dear," said the old woman, passing the jug to the girl. "God willing, we'll have enough to pay for the wedding feast," she added. "That's not yet awhile," said the cornet with a slight frown. The girl hung her head. "Why shouldn't we mention it?" said the old woman. "The affair is settled, and the time is drawing near too." "Don't make plans beforehand," said the cornet. "Now we have the harvest to get in." "Have you seen Lukashka's new horse?" asked the old woman. "That which Dmitri Andreich Olin gave him is gone. He's exchanged it." "No, I have not, but I spoke with the servant today," said the cornet, "and he said his master has again received 1,000 roubles. "Rolling in riches, in short," said the old woman. The whole family felt cheerful and contented. The work was progressing successfully. The grapes were more abundant and finer than they had expected. After dinner, Myanka threw some grass to the oxen, folded her beshmet for a pillow, and lay down under the wagon on the juicy, down-trodden grass. She had on only a red kerchief over her head and a faded blue print smock. Yet she felt unbearably hot. Her face was burning, and she did not know where to put her feet. Her eyes were moist with sleepiness and weariness. Her lips parted involuntarily, and her chest heaved heavily and deeply. The busy time of the year had begun a fortnight ago, and the continuous heavy labor had filled the girl's life. At dawn, she jumped up, washed her face with cold water, wrapped herself in a shawl, and ran out barefoot to see the cattle. Then she hurriedly put on her shoes and her beshmet, taking a small bundle of bread. She harnessed the bullocks and drove away to the vineyard for the whole day. There she cut the grapes and carried the baskets with only an hour's interval for rest. And in the evening she returned to the village, bright and not tired, dragging the bullocks by a rope or driving them with a long stick. After attending to the cattle, she took some sunflower seeds in the wide sleeve of her smock and went to the corner of the street to crack them and have some fun with the other girls. But as soon as it was dusk, she returned home, and after having supper with her parents and her brother in the dark outhouse, healthy and free from care, and climbed onto the oven, where half drowsing she listened to their lodger's conversation. As soon as he went away, she would throw herself down on her bed and sleep soundly and quietly until morning. And so it went on day after day. She had not seen Lukashka since their betrothal, but calmly awaited the wedding. She had gotten used to their lodger, and felt his intent looks with pleasure.